If you want one guide to show you everything you need to launch a successful Kickstarter this year, then you came to the right place. Because for the last 10 years, I've helped over 1,000 product creators raise over $125 million with crowdfunding. And in this video, I'm gonna share everything you must know to make your Kickstarter a success. You'll learn how to find your superfan, how to run meta ads, even how to get funded on the very first day, and a lot more. All organized into 17 simple steps that even a complete beginner can follow. Now, this system has been used by creators from all different product categories with all different budgets and at all different stages of business. So whether you have a tabletop game, a tech product, glamping project, or anything in between, follow these 17 steps and you will have a successful Kickstarter launch this year. All right, let's dive into the first step, positioning your product. In August of 2022, Audrey launched her first Kickstarter campaign called Kubelet. Unfortunately, it failed to get the funding she needed, so she canceled it. And 8 months later, she relaunched the same exact product on Kickstarter, only this time it raised over $150,000. So what was different? Well, let's pull up the two campaigns side by side. In the first campaign, Audrey positioned her product as mini monitors for your desk, and in the second successful campaign, Audrey positioned her product as the ultimate simple yet powerful data tracker. She didn't change her product in the second campaign, she changed how she positioned her product. And that simple yet powerful change of positioning was key in helping her raise 6 times more funding her second time around. So what makes good product positioning? Well, I like to say that good product positioning convinces your target customer that your product solves their problem. This is a lot easier to say than it is to do, but there's a framework I like to use that will help you clarify your product positioning, and it's called the Consumer-Based Brand Equity, or CBBE framework. It has 4 different levels that will help any creator position their product to sell. Starting at the base, we've got salience. This is where you answer the big question, what are you? But here's the key, you've got to keep it simple. What your product is and how it solves a problem should be crystal clear. It's like when someone asks you what you do for a living, you wouldn't say, I dabble in a multifaceted array of ventures. No one knows what that means. Instead, you'd say something like, I'm an engineer, I'm an accountant, or I have a business that sells products online. When it comes to your product, you want to use words that your target audience understands. So keep it simple and don't overthink this part. Moving up to level 2, we're talking about performance and imagery. This is where you show off what makes your product truly special. Let's start with performance. Performance is all about what your product does way better or different than your competition. Does it last 10 times longer? Is it 50% of the price? Is it a new and interesting theme for a board game? Don't hold back here. This is one of the few times in life where it's okay to brag. Next, we have imagery. This is like the setting where your product story takes place. Where will people use your product? Who will be using your product? How will they use your product? Paint that picture so your target audience can clearly see themselves using it. Level 3 is about judgments and feelings. This is where people are asking, how good are you really? Starting with judgments, you want to think about the doubts people have about your product and then get in front of those doubts. For example, for neck hammock, we knew people would have doubts about the effectiveness of such a simple device to help with neck pain. So we leaned into the science behind cervical traction and the fact that it was created by a doctor and licensed physical therapist. Now onto feelings. This isn't some kumbaya stuff I'm talking about. Instead, this is about identifying the emotions you want people to feel when experiencing your product. Are you going for fun and youthfulness, or serious and professional? For example, let's compare the feelings you get from Zebek Snap and Wilderlore, which are 2 Launch Boom campaigns. These are the first GIFs that appear on their campaign pages, and they feel pretty different, right? With a sleek white background and subtle zoom video editing, Zebek gives off more of an innovative, professional, and cool vibes, while Wilderlore, on the other hand, uses soft, warm colors to evoke feelings of love, support, and connection. As you can see, the feelings you choose will lead you to different words and images in your marketing. And at the peak of the pyramid, resonance. This is the what about you and me moment. It's where loyalty lives and where connections are cemented. You want customers to see your brand as a kindred spirit with a shared mission and values. For example, one of the campaigns we helped launch recently was The Crooked Moon. It was created by 7 best friends who love Dungeons and Dragons. Including their story in the product positioning created connection or resonance between their customers and themselves. This is one of the reasons why they went on to raise over $4 million and become the most funded D&D campaign ever on Kickstarter. Use the CBBE framework to position your product the right way, and once you do this, you'll have an incredibly strong foundation to build the rest of your Kickstarter launch on top of. All right, now on to step 2, product imagery. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a good product image is worth 1,000 backers because good visuals translate to instant appeal. And there are two main types of product imagery you can use to get there: photorealistic renderings and photography. First up, let's talk about renderings. These are like the magic of Photoshop for your product. Renderings allow for precise control over product appearance, materials, lighting, and environment. And these can be a lifesaver if your prototype isn't ready yet. All you have to do is find a 3D render artist on a site like Upwork, and you can start your marketing while finalizing your physical prototype. An important note though, photorealistic renderings are not allowed on Kickstarter, but they can still be very useful in your marketing during the pre-launch. Next, we're talking about the real deal, product photography. You want to get three types of product photos: studio photos, location photos, and action photos of your product. Studio photos are like the glamour shots of your product. Throw your product on a white or colored backdrop and highlight every angle and feature. For example, check out these studio shots from Launch Boom creator Author Clock, who went on to raise over $1.3 million on Kickstarter. We shot the Author Clock straight on at a 45-degree angle, profile, and back. For location photos, you want to showcase your product where people would use it. Lucky for you, you already thought up all those locations during the imagery section of the CBBE framework. Let's see the location shots for our campaign for the Top Shelf, which raised nearly 1.3 million Canadian dollars on Kickstarter. We showed off the bag in locations like the wilderness, a busy city, and while working. This way, backers could visualize how they would use it. Now for action shots. You want to use these to showcase product benefits better shown through motion or interaction. Focus on one specific action you're trying to show and capture that in a photo. For example, here's an action shot from our campaign for the tandem shower, which raised over $774,000. As you can see, it shows the action of a couple taking a shower together, which is the main benefit of the product. But action shots aren't limited to photos. They can be video too. Here's one from the campaign for the pepper cannon, which raised over $1.1 million. These show how the pepper cannon can grind a bunch of pepper super fast. All right, now with your product imagery done, we can move on to step 3, building a reservation funnel. So what in the world is a reservation funnel? Well, a reservation funnel is a way to collect email addresses and, more importantly, $1 reservation deposits during the pre-launch. Those that put down a $1 deposit are rewarded with your best launch deal, and we like to call them VIPs. Here's why this is so important. Without the $1 reservation, it's virtually impossible to know how likely it is that someone on your email list will actually buy your product when you launch on Kickstarter, which means it's very easy to waste money on marketing, building email lists when you don't use a reservation funnel. Instead, adding a special VIP offer like a discounted add-on or guaranteed discount that gets people to put down a small deposit in the pre-launch lets you know who's actually interested in buying. Now, the steps in the reservation funnel are simple. I'll show you how we did it for our campaign for Botany, who raised over $1 million on Kickstarter. First, create a landing page using the product positioning and product imagery you created in steps 1 and 2. The goal here is for someone to give you their email address. Next, show an exclusive VIP offer in exchange for a $1 reservation deposit. Botany gave an exclusive add-on called Brilliant Blue Botanicals, but it doesn't stop there. Once they check out, lead them to a thank you page where they are invited to join an exclusive VIP community. In this case, they use Facebook, but a Discord server can work too. You might be thinking, is getting the $1 deposit really worth it? The short answer, yes, and the data backs it up. We found that on average, someone that puts down a $1 deposit is 30 times more likely to buy than someone that only gives their email address. That's a huge difference. And not having enough VIPs can be the difference between failure and success for your Kickstarter. Because here's the thing, the pre-launch email list you'll build with the reservation funnel is going to allow you to hit your Kickstarter funding goal on the very first day. Yep, you heard that right. Botany, for example, used their pre-launch email list to blow past their $5,000 Kickstarter goal, raising over $105,000 in the first 24 hours. Quick tip, the reservation funnel I showed you from Botany was created using LaunchKit. That's the software we built at LaunchBoom that powers all of our launches. If you want to learn more about LaunchKit, I've included a link in the description below. All right, let's move on to step 4, setting up your email marketing. Before you start building your pre-launch email list, you need to set up your email marketing strategy. That's because it's not enough to just talk with the people on your list. You need to talk with them the right way. But before we get into the details about the exact emails you should send, you have to understand 2 important best practices of email marketing. Best practice number 1, limit your calls to action. Every email you send should call the reader to take an action, and in the marketing world, we aptly call this a call to action or CTA. Think of it as guiding the people on your list down a path that takes them closer to becoming a backer. For example, a great call to action is for someone on your email list to upgrade to VIP for $1. Ideally, you only have one call to action per email, so keep it focused. Best practice number 2, quality over quantity. Nobody likes getting a bunch of emails in their inbox every day, and bombarding your list with a ton of emails is an easy way to hurt your open rates and see more unsubscribes. You want your pre-launch list to be excited to back your project, not to be annoyed every time you pop in their inbox. My advice is to keep things simple. There are 2 sequences of emails you want to send. First, your welcome email sequence, which is a series of 2 emails that welcomes them to your pre-launch list once they first sign up. And second, your launch announcement sequence, which is a series of 2 emails that are sent in the week before your launch. That's it. Don't get tempted to send weekly updates to your subscribers. We've actually found that to be the quickest way to make people get frustrated and unsubscribe from your list. Instead, keep it simple and only send the most impactful emails. Now, in a later step, we'll dive into the launch announcement email sequence, but for now, let's talk about your welcome email sequence. This sequence should be sent out to new subscribers to your email list automatically, and setting up the automation is easy with any modern email service provider like MailChimp. But I wouldn't recommend setting up just one welcome sequence. Instead, you should set up one for both your non-VIP and VIP segments. Let's start with the non-VIPs. These are the people on your email list that have shown interest but haven't put down a $1 deposit yet. You'll want to create 2 emails in this sequence. The first one will be sent to them right when they sign up for your list. You'll want to thank them for signing up and include a call to action to upgrade to VIP for $1. For example, here's what the first welcome email looked like for the Crooked Moon. Next, you'll want to add a second email to the sequence. This will be sent one day after the first and focus on 1, trying to get them to engage by answering a question, and 2, upgrading to VIP for $1. You can see how the Crooked Moon did that with their second email. Next, let's talk about the welcome email sequence for your VIPs. VIPs are the most excited about your project. Calls to action here are focused on giving them more ways to stay up to date with your campaign. The first email in your welcome sequence should be triggered when they put down the $1 deposit. Because they already have upgraded to VIP, I recommend either inviting them to follow your Kickstarter page or to join a VIP community where they can interact with you and other VIPs. For example, here's what the first email looked like for the Crooked Moon, which does exactly that. Now, the second email is pretty similar to the non-VIP email. Ask them a question and then use the same call to action as your previous email. For example, here's what it looked like for the Crooked Moon. Now that you know which emails to send, you'll need to get them set up in an email marketing platform. And there are many to choose from, like MailerLite or Klaviyo, but we like to use MailChimp here at LaunchBoom. As long as you use one that can set up automations and can send normal email campaigns, you'll be all good. All right, now that your email strategy is ready to go, let's start by actually getting some emails on your list. That brings us to step 5, driving traffic with meta ads. Now that you have your reservation funnel built, you need to tell people about it. And by far, the best way to do that is with Facebook and Instagram ads, aka meta ads. Now, creating a good ad really boils down to getting 2 things right. First, you need to target the right audience on Meta. And an audience on Meta is really just a collection of interests. And like it or not, Meta knows a lot about what people are interested in. Now, to make this process easier and a lot more fun, I suggest using the Superfan framework. Think about who would love your product. Stretch your imagination a bit here. Give them a name, create a little backstory, give them an occupation, a family, and an income. But the most important part here is to ask the following questions. What do they do for fun? What brands do they buy from? Who do they follow, and what do they watch and listen to? For example, here's what the Superfan looked like for our campaign for the Polycade Sente, which raised over $1.6 million on Kickstarter. They liked video games, especially the retro arcade type. They liked the finer things in life, like Ferrari, Supreme, and Mont Blanc watches. They were also a little bit of a nerd and liked reading Wired or watching the latest MKBHD video on YouTube. These are all interests that can be grouped together and then targeted on Meta. So first, think of who your superfan is, and then you can easily build your audiences. Second thing you'll need is to create a good ad, which is really made up of copy and imagery. Let's start with your ad imagery. This can be a photo or video and is the thing that will stop people from scrolling their feed to pay attention to your product. We found that studio shots or location shots like the ones you got during step 2 can perform really well here. For example, check out these ads for our campaign for Nitro Press, which raised over £649,000. The first is a nice studio shot shot and the second is a beautiful location shot, and both worked really well. For video, there's a lot of different styles you can try, but one of my favorites is the product walkthrough template. For example, check out this ad for our campaign for Tidy Board version 2, which raised over $354,000. This is the fast cut video that walks through how to use the product. You'll want to test different ads and audiences until you find the right combinations that get you the lowest cost for $1 reservation. And when you find the best performing combinations, scale up your ad budgets until you have a big enough pre-launch email list to launch your campaign. But before we get to your launch, there are a few more things we need to get done first, which brings us to our next step, building your campaign page. The campaign page is so important, yet so many creators screw it up. This is not the place to tell your story. You're trying to get people to buy, which means treat it less like a best-selling novel and more like a direct response advertisement. Here are 3 tips to make a campaign page that sells. First, think in headlines. You may spend hours perfecting every word on your page, but I hate to break it to you, most people aren't going to read them. Instead, they're going to skim. And what do they read when they skim? Your headlines. For example, check out what the page for our campaign for Century Jacket looked like. As we skim down the page, the headlines tell us a lot of important information. Introducing the Century Jacket, the all-natural, high-performance 100-year jacket, timeless silhouette for timeless wear, functional fit and functional form, 100% natural, 100 years of adventure. From just reading those headlines, you get a pretty good understanding of the main benefits and features of the product. Second, use a lot of GIFs. GIFs are great for showcasing those action shots you got during step 2. For example, let's pull up a few on the Century Jacket page. In the flattering fit and functional form section, they used 2 GIFs to showcase the different looks you can get from the jacket. Or let's go to the twill weave silk lining section, where there's a GIF of someone using the inside pocket while showing off the silk lining. Third, use your pre-launch data to influence your campaign page design. One of the coolest parts about all the advertising you'll be doing during the pre-launch is that you'll learn so much about what works and what doesn't. Take those learnings and directly apply it to your campaign page. For example, check out the best performing headline on the landing page for Century Jacket. And now let's look at the headline on their Kickstarter page. They're basically identical. That's because the Livingston team already knew the headline worked because they tested it during the pre-launch. Do the same thing. Take your best headline and make it your Kickstarter headline. Take your best ad image and make it your campaign image. You get the idea. All right, it's time to move on to the next step, creating your campaign video. The campaign video. If I'm being honest, I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with it. It is important and can be very persuasive in getting someone to buy your product, but it can also be a huge cash suck. I've seen too many creators insist on spending way too much money on their campaign video. In nearly every case, I think the video shouldn't cost you more than $15,000. After that, there's diminishing returns, and I'd rather just put that savings into something more productive like ad spend. And by the way, I think most first-time creators should spend a lot less than $15,000. Let me show you a video we created that actually cost less than $10,000 to produce and was super effective.
Hey man, you busy?
Yes, you are busy. And it's time to let your house know it. Meet BusyBox, the wireless status box that helps you work uninterrupted and enter deep focus at home.
Now, like I said before, this video didn't cost a lot to produce. Why? Well, first off, it had a great script and was largely driven by a voiceover. It was shot in one location with a few actors, and those actors could easily be you or your friends. It made use of stock video to make the video more dynamic while keeping the cost super low. This campaign went on to raise $332,000 on Indiegogo, and Steve, the founder, even got on Shark Tank, which I think is awesome. Now, assuming you don't have video production experience, the hardest part about creating your video will be getting it shot and edited. That's where a lot of the costs come in. You can keep the cost a lot lower by writing your own script and hiring contractors to help you get it filmed and edited. There are also really good agencies that specialize in campaign videos, but I would recommend going for their lower cost packages in most cases. We just talked a lot about spending money, so let's switch gears and talk about making money. It's time to move on to step 8, choosing rewards and pricing. You can think of rewards as the buy options for your Kickstarter campaign. These are the things that people back, and they are super important to get right. I'm gonna give you 3 different reward strategies that we've used on thousands of campaigns. But first, you need to understand these 6 key pricing concepts that we use, because these concepts are why these pricing strategies work so well. First up, discounting. You know the classic get it at 50% off strategy. This is one of the most popular pricing strategies within crowdfunding. Second, price anchoring. If you saw a product for $100 today and then tomorrow was $50, you'd think you were getting a great deal, right? That's price anchoring, and it can be a very powerful tactic within crowdfunding. Third, scarcity. This is where you limit the amount of something being available. This can be very persuasive because people do not like to miss out on stuff. Fourth, urgency. This works just the same as scarcity, except it uses limited time instead of limited quantity. Fifth, the paradox of choice. This is a concept from Barry Shorts, which points out that when humans have too many choices, they often make no choice at all. And for that reason, we want to keep our rewards as simple as possible. 6, value stacking. As the price increases, the value associated with that reward actually goes up. Another popular name for this is bundling. All right, now that you understand the 6 key pricing concepts, let's get into my top 3 reward strategies. First up, discount stacking. This is best for creators who 1, are only launching one main product, and 2, are not in the games category. For example, let me show you how this worked for our campaign for the Desk Nest. Here's how the rewards were broken down. VIP special for $99, launch special for $111, super early bird for $115, early bird for $119, and the Kickstarter special for $139. These are all different rewards, but each is selling the same exact product. The only difference is the discount being offered. Each of these rewards use different limits of time and quantity to incentivize backers to get in earlier. This is working really well for Desk Nest right now, who are actually live on Kickstarter and have already raised over $350,000. Second up, the no-brainer deal. Let's say you plan to sell an add-on that is complementary to your main product that costs you very little to make. You may be a good candidate for the no-brainer deal. For example, let's see how our campaign for the Backblade 2.0 used this strategy. First off, here were the 2 items that were available for sale on the campaign: the Backblade 2.0, which was the main product, and a 4-pack of extra blades, which was the complementary add-on. Because we had the add-on of the 4-pack of extra blades, we could create 2 different rewards. First, the starter pack, which came with just the Backblade 2.0. This was $24 or a 30% discount off retail. And second, the full pack, which came with the Backblade 2.0 and 4 extra blades. This was only $29 or a 38% discount off retail. When people came to the campaign, they realized that they could get a lot more value if they just spent $5 more on the full pack, which is why we call it a no-brainer deal. This worked really well for Backblade, who went on to raise over $316,000 on Kickstarter. Third, we have value stacking. This works great if you have multiple standalone products or if you're in the games category. With value stacking, when the price goes up, so does the value being offered. That's because you'll bundle different valuable items together in each reward tier. For example, let's see how the campaign for Kelp did this. First off, they had the following items to sell on the campaign: Kelp Standard Edition, Kelp Deluxe Edition, and the Brilliant Behaviors mini expansion. Because Kelp had 2 different main products plus some add-ons, they bundled them together into different value-based reward tiers. They had the Standard Edition for 45 euros, the Deluxe Edition for 60 euros, and the Deluxe Bundle for 68 euros, which included the Deluxe Edition of the game plus the Brilliant Behaviors mini expansion. Again, each reward tier offered more value, which only incentivized backers to spend more money. This worked super well for Kelp, as they went on to raise over 1.4 million euros. Hey, real quick, if you want to go even deeper into everything I'm talking about, you should check out my book, Crowdfunded. It's actually the best-selling book on crowdfunding in the world, with 4.7 out of 5 stars from 269 reviews, and I published a new edition in August of 2023 where the CEO of Kickstarter and Indiegogo endorsed it. Anyways, you can put up on Kindle, print, or audiobook that I recorded myself. Link to check it out is in the corner of this video and in the description below. All right, it's time to move on to step 9, setting your funding goal. At first glance, setting your funding goal on Kickstarter should be easy, right? I mean, shouldn't it just be the amount you need to make your product? Well, for many creators, the answer to that question is increasingly becoming no. You see, crowdfunding is not just used as a funding tool, but a marketing tool. And it can be used for both at the same time, by the way, but many creators are using it more for marketing than for funding. And depending on how you define success for your campaign, will tell you what you should set your funding goal at. To help you figure this out, it's important to answer some questions first. What are the fixed costs to create your product? If you lost money on the crowdfunding campaign, would you still bring it to life? If so, how much are you willing to lose? With the answers to those questions, ask yourself which of these two strategies you identify with more. 1, funding strategy, you need to raise a certain amount of funds to create your product. If you don't, it's very unlikely you can get funds from somewhere else. Or 2, marketing strategy, you already have the funds to create your project. Kickstarter is your way to get mass exposure, and you're okay with losing some money on the campaign. If you answered funding strategy, then the answer to setting your funding goal is simple. Set the funding goal at whatever the amount is you need to create your product. And to figure this out, you'll have to be further along in the product development process. That means, at a minimum, having a quote from your manufacturer to how much it will cost to produce your minimum order quantity. Now, if you answered marketing strategy, then the funding amount should be whatever you believe you can hit on day 1 of the campaign, because getting funded quickly has huge benefits such as increased social proof, attracting press, and getting free traffic from Kickstarter. To figure out how much you can raise on the first day, it's pretty easy. You can take the number of emails on your list and calculate what percentage of the list you believe will convert into a backer. Multiply that number by your price point, and you can get a good estimation of how much you'll raise on the first day. For example, one of our campaigns, Bear Mountain Camping Adventure, had 1,826 people who put down a $1 reservation in the pre-launch. We conservatively estimated that 30% would turn into a backer. With the lowest price point of $39, we generate $21,364 on the first day. So the goal was set at $5,000 because we thought we could blast through it. And that's exactly what happened. The VIP list ended up converting at 51% and contributed over $89,000 in sales to the campaign. So maybe our original estimates were a little too conservative, but no one complained about that. All right, with the funding goal set, it's time to move on to step 10, choosing your launch date. I'm going to tell you the exact month, day, and hour you should launch your project. How? Well, we have data from over 342,000 Kickstarter campaigns that was analyzed by KickNotify. The data clearly shows when the best time to launch your Kickstarter is. Before I tell you that, let me explain how to understand the data I'm about to show you. I'll be showing bar charts to make it easier to visualize. The purple bars represent the number of launches, and the yellow people icons represent the average number of backers per project. The higher the purple bar or yellow icon, the more of that thing there is. So first, let's look at the data for the best day of the week to launch. As you can see, Tuesdays have both the most launches and average number of backers per project. This means it's the best day of the week to launch. Why is this? Well, email open rates tend to be the highest on Tuesdays, and email is typically how creators are announcing their launches, so a higher open rate is going to send more backers to a campaign. Next, let's look at the data for the best time of the day to launch. All of the times are in Eastern Standard Time. Clearly, the morning is the best time to launch. If you launch somewhere between 7 to 10 a.m., you'll be good. This makes sense since the majority of Kickstarter's market is in the US, so trying to take advantage of the entire day in the US is typically the best strategy. That is unless your audience is primarily based in a completely different time zone. For example, if over 50% of your email list lives in Europe, then launch between 7 and 10 a.m. in that time zone. Next, let's look at the best month to launch. What pops out to you immediately when looking at this chart? Probably that there isn't too much difference between all the months, except for 1 month. I'm looking at you, December. Yep, December is the worst month to launch. That's because December is the month of holidays and gifting in many parts of the world. Both of those things don't play very well with crowdfunding. When people are taking a holiday, they don't buy a lot of stuff for themselves, especially when that holiday revolves around buying gifts for others. People don't buy gifts with crowdfunding because it's a pre-order and they won't receive the product for a long time. By the way, I would also advise against launching in November if you can avoid it. The end of the month is where we see huge sales for Black Friday and Cyber Monday, so brands will start spending a lot on advertising, which just creates more competition and increases the cost of advertising for you. So the takeaway here is that May is the most popular month by a slight margin, but really any month is okay as long as it's not December or November. But there is one more thing to take into account here: seasonality. You want to launch in the season when people will use your product, not when they will receive your product. For example, let's look at our campaign for the Go Sun Chillest, which is a cooler to be used outdoors. When do people use coolers the most? Well, during the summer, right? So that's when they launched. And you want to know when people actually receive that product? In January, when it's cold and people aren't using coolers. This may seem counterintuitive, but backers buy stuff based off of the desire to have something now, even if they won't receive that thing for a long time. So if you have a seasonal product, launch during that season. All right, now that you know when to launch, let's launch this puppy. On the first day of their campaigns, Polykade raised over 1 million, Botany raised over 100,000, and Nanofilmer raised over $387,000, blowing past their funding goals in a matter of minutes. How in the world did they do that? Well, to answer that question, we have to go back 1 week before launch day. This is where you'll start the hype train with your pre-launch email list. There are 2 emails you'll send to your email list, 7 days before you launch and 1 day before you launch. That's it. Sending too many emails is the quickest way to get people to stop opening your emails. And if that happens, then all the money you spent collecting those emails will be wasted. After you send those emails, the next milestone will be your launch. Send 1 email in the morning and 1 email in the evening. Yes, 2 emails in 1 day. Once you launch, it's okay to email your list a lot more because you have something to sell. If you do this right, you'll blow past your funding goal on the very first day, and in most cases, it will happen in minutes. That flood of backers will shoot you up in the rankings on Kickstarter, which will bring you more visibility to your campaign. And I'm talking about a lot more visibility. Usually between 20 to 30% of the total funding amount will be from Kickstarter itself. For example, for Botany, it was actually 31%, which meant that over $334,000 was sent by Kickstarter, which is honestly bonkers. Now, once you get funded quickly, make sure you take a minute to celebrate, but not for too long. You still have a lot more time left in your campaign and a lot more opportunity to raise even more money, which brings us to step 12, driving traffic with meta ads, part 2. Yep, we're talking about meta ads again, because in nearly every big campaign you see, the driving force of continued funding is from meta ads. So let's talk about how they work and how you can use them. Unlike the pre-launch, where you have to predict your return on ad spend, once you are live, you can see exactly how much money you are making for every dollar you are spending on advertising. That means you can now make decisions on increasing or decreasing your ad budget much more easily. One of the easiest advertising wins you can get will be to set up remarketing. Remarketing is where you target people who you have already marketed to in the past. For example, I recommend remarketing to your entire pre-launch email list. Some of you may be saying, why should I advertise to people who already signed up on my email list? This is part of what I call the surround sound strategy. When you launch, you want to be everywhere. Doing this will ensure that people who sign up on your list won't miss your launch. For example, take a look at the remarketing efforts for Vava, who ended up generating a 30 times return on ad spend from remarketing to their list. Let's pull up one of the ads that was used to do this. As you can see, the copy directly speaks to the VIPs. Hey Vava 4K laser projector VIPs. You'll want to do something similar. Now, this ad was super effective. We spent a little over $3,500 on this ad and generated over $107,000 in direct revenue. After remarketing, you can try to attract completely new people to your campaign. Let's start by talking about 2 audiences you should target. First, a lookalike audience of your VIP list, and second, your best performing pre-launch audiences. To create a lookalike audience of your VIP list, just upload it to Meta and it will create it for you. A lookalike audience is when Meta takes a seed audience, in this case your VIP list, and then creates a completely new audience with similar interests and demographic information. This is a way to fast track the audience creation process and let Meta do a lot of the work for you. Next, let's talk about the ad copy. There are a few copy tactics you can use. First, social proof, like how overfunded your campaign is. Second, reviews like testimonials or press mentions. And third, hyperbole, where you lean into a favorite feature and use a very strong adjective like insane, ultimate, or genius. For example, check out this ad from our campaign for Lomi, which raised over $7.2 million. We leaned into social proof by saying it had already raised $2 million. And this ad got a 4.77 times return on ad spend. All right, now you understand how to use meta ads to keep boosting your campaign. Let's dive into the next step, using PR and influencer marketing. Have you ever been to a restaurant and heard someone ask the server, hey, what do you recommend? How often did that person go with what the server recommended? Nearly every time, right? That's because humans are heavily influenced by the recommendations of others, even if that person is a complete stranger. And the data backs this up. 90% of people claim to trust a brand more when it's recommended by others. Again, even if those people are complete strangers. This is why PR and influencer marketing works so well. Trusted third parties will make a recommendation about your product, and other people will buy your product because of it. So how do you do it? Well, PR and influencer marketing are a little bit different from one another, so we'll tackle each one at a time. Let's start with influencers. Influencers come in all sizes, so let's talk about the different types out there. As you can see, there are 5 main types of influencers ranging from nano to mega, all separated by how many followers they have. Now, here's the thing. While mega, macro, and mid-tier influencers might seem more enticing because of their follower count, I recommend setting your sights on micro and nano influencers. Why? Because micro and nano influencers are 1, easier to reach, 2 typically have much higher engagement, 3 specialize in specific topics or industries, and 4 are more open to commission agreements. So for all those reasons, micro and nano influencers often deliver a much higher return on investment than their counterparts with more followers. But wait, how do you go about finding these influencers? Well, for example, let's say you're launching a travel backpack like the Nomadic Travel Bag campaign. Here's how I'd go about finding influencers. Start with YouTube. Search for travel backpack reviews and boom, you'll find a list of YouTube channels that you can reach out to. You can do the same thing on TikTok or Instagram. Once you've found your influencers, it's time to reach out. But how do you make your outreach stand out from the crowd? Well, when reaching out, keep it personal instead of formal. Compliment the influencer's work and explain why your product aligns with their audience. But here's a reality check. Influencers rarely work for free, so be prepared to invest something. Based on Shopify's recent data, the going rate is about $100 per 10,000 followers. But here's a little secret. Nano and micro influencers are more open to commission agreements. So consider setting up a Kickbooster account, which will allow you to easily set up an affiliate program for your Kickstarter campaign. Not every influencer will say yes, but when they do, it's like having a trusted partner that you only have to pay when you get a sale. All right, now let's move on to PR. First thing you'll want to do is create a press kit. This is simply a collection of assets that journalists and media outlets want. It's honestly really easy to make. Create a folder on something like Google Drive or Dropbox and fill it with photos and videos of your product. Then place it at the bottom of your campaign page and link to it. For example, here's what it looked like on the campaign page for EcoTrek, a client of ours who raised over $514,000. If we click on the press kit, you can see a collection of images that press could use in their articles. With the press kit made, it's now time to reach out to some journalists. But how do you know who to reach out to? The easiest way to figure out who to reach out to is to go to campaigns who have the same audience as you and see who covered them. For example, let's say you have an outdoor product that would appeal to EcoTrek's audience who I just showed you. You could go to their campaign page and see who they were featured by. EcoTrek got covered by Men's Journal, Outside Magazine, Forbes, Gear Junkie, and a few others. Next, let's go to Google and find these articles. For example, I can type in EcoTrek Gear Junkie and see that an article pops up. Let's click on it, then click on the journalist's name, then click on one of his social profiles. I'll choose LinkedIn. And from here, you can send the journalist a message. Remember, outreach is a numbers game. Not everyone will respond, but the more you reach out, the higher the chance of getting coverage. All right, now with your PR and influencer marketing strategy locked down, let's keep this momentum going with step 14, boosting your campaign. All right, I'm gonna tell you something not a lot of people like to talk about. There's a period in many crowdfunding campaigns we lovingly call the Valley of Death. Maybe a little dramatic, but there's a reason why it got this name. It's normal for campaigns to get a lot of funding at the beginning and at the end of the campaign. The middle part is the valley, where it can be easy to lose momentum. So here are 3 tactics to help you avoid this valley of death. The first is cross promotions. This is where you reach out to other live Kickstarter campaigns to see if they want to promote you and vice versa. How this works is you'll include each other in one of your campaign updates. For example, here's what some of the cross promotions look like for our client's campaign for Alpha Shovel. As you can see, they included the Pocket Samurai at the end of one of their campaign updates, and the Pocket Samurai did the exact same thing for Alpha Shovel. All in all, cross promotion partners like Pocket Samurai drove nearly $10,000 in sales for the Alpha Shovel campaign. The second tactic is backer newsletters. These are companies that have their own backer communities that you can promote to. There are actually quite a lot of these newsletters, and some are definitely better than others. For example, ones that I've seen work really well right now are First Backer from Jellup, Pledgebox's newsletter, and Backer Many. Make sure you do a little research before you go with one and try to only work with newsletters that work on commission or have a very low fee, like a few $100s. The third tactic is platform promotions. This one really depends on which platform you launch on. On Kickstarter, there is no way to pay for promotions. Indiegogo, on the other hand, will gladly talk to you about different promotions they have and how much they cost. But let's go back to Kickstarter. One of the best ways to get promoted is to first get the coveted Project I Love badge. Not only does it look great, but it also gets you more visibility on Kickstarter. I already know what you're thinking, how do I get that badge? Well, here's exactly what Kickstarter's team has told me to focus on. First, create something that is truly innovative and unique, and second, design a very aesthetically pleasing campaign page. Lastly, it's more likely you can get the badge if you get introduced to someone on their team, and as a Kickstarter certified expert ourselves, we may be able to help make that happen. All right, with the Valley of Death avoided, it's time to move on to step 15, finishing your campaign strong. We're approaching the finish line, but you don't want to celebrate just yet. I mean, we've all seen what can happen from that. Instead, you're going to sprint through the finish line. There are two areas you want to focus on here. The first is email marketing, and the second is meta advertising. Starting with your email list, there are 3 emails you want to send. One will be sent 3 days before you end, and the final 2 emails will be sent on your last day. That's right, you should send 2 emails on the final day, one in the morning and one in the evening. If you have Kickstarter exclusives, you'll want to talk about those in your emails. The second tactic is meta ads again. Yes, I'm only bringing it up one more time because you'll want to change your strategy a little bit here. First off, who should you target with your ads? Well, besides continuing to target audiences that are still working from before, I'd start remarketing again. Again, remarketing is when you target people that you've already marketed to in the past. Here are the different remarketing audiences I would target. 1, your entire email list, and 2, everyone who went to your Kickstarter page and did not buy. For your ad copy and ad creative, you'll want to update the messaging a little bit. The main change will be to lean into urgency since the campaign will be ending soon. For example, let's pull up this ad from our campaign for Vava, which raised over $2.1 million. As you can see, we leaned heavily into the limited time remaining in the campaign by using phrases like ending soon and last chance. Do the same thing for your campaign and you'll finish your campaign strong, bringing in a spike of funding and sending your campaign to new heights. But just because your campaign has now officially ended doesn't mean you can't keep raising funds, because now it's time to move on to step 16, setting up late pledges. So you made it past the finish line. Now what? Well, for one, it's time to make your product. But while you're making your product, why not continue to make sales? Well, that's where Kickstarter late pledges come into play. By turning on late pledges, you can continue to make sales on your Kickstarter campaign. For example, Masters of Realms turned on late pledges immediately when the campaign ended. The campaign looks basically the same as the live campaign, except now there is no timeline. Here are 3 tips to keep in mind when setting it up. 1, announce late pledges in a campaign update. Let everyone know that they can still back the campaign if they missed out. Second, make your late pledge rewards a slightly worse deal than your live campaign. One of the main incentives for people to back your live campaign is typically to take advantage of some type of deal. This could be a discount or a limited exclusive item, and it's a best practice to not offer the same deals to late pledges. That way, you can make sure that the people who supported you early are rewarded the most. Third, if you're using late pledges, don't set up another store. I've seen some creators want to set up Kickstarter late pledges, a pledge manager pre-order shop, and their own e-commerce store thinking they will cast a wider net and get more sales. But actually, the opposite happens. Treat Kickstarter late pledges as your one pre-order store while you're creating your product. Drive all traffic to this page. This will make potential backers less confused and make it way easier for you to manage fulfillment. Lastly, it's important to note that with Kickstarter late pledges, the backer's credit card is charged immediately. This is unlike your live campaign where backers' credit cards are charged when your campaign ends. This is a good thing. It means you'll get a steady stream of cash flow while you manufacture and fulfill your product. And now with late pledges all set up, there's only one more thing to do. Step 17, use a pledge manager. By this point, you'll have hundreds, thousands, or maybe even tens of thousands of customers who can't wait to receive your product. And there's one thing that will make delivering your product to these customers way easier. That thing is called a pledge manager. You see, when someone backs your campaign, they don't actually give you much information besides their name and email and whatever reward they chose. You're missing some really important stuff like their shipping address or what variants like size or color of your product they want. That's where Pledge Manager comes in. It allows you to easily get all this information from your backers after your Kickstarter campaign ends. Broadly speaking, you have 2 options when it comes to choosing a pledge manager. First, Kickstarter itself. At the time of creating this video, the native pledge manager on Kickstarter is very basic, but I wouldn't be surprised if they release a more feature-rich pledge manager soon. By the time you watch this, they may have one, so make sure you check on their website. The second option is third-party pledge managers, essentially other companies that offer pledge management software. Again, at the time of making this video, the third-party pledge managers are the best in my opinion. For example, I'd go check out pledgemanager.com, who is currently the official partner of Kickstarter. Regardless of which pledge manager you choose, here are some tips. First, use your pledge manager to sell more product. This is one of the most powerful parts of a pledge manager. Because you are already asking backers to do important stuff like confirming their shipping address and choosing variant information, why not see if they'd like to buy anything else? Put in all your add-ons from your campaign, and if you don't have any more add-ons, just put your main product for sale again at a discounted rate. By the way, every time we've used this upsell feature, backers always buy more stuff, which makes it a no-brainer in my book. Second, charge for shipping on your pledge manager and not on Kickstarter. That's right, I do not recommend charging for shipping during your live Kickstarter campaign. Instead, use the Pledge Manager to charge for shipping after. Charging for shipping later will ensure you are able to charge the most accurate rates based on backers' validated delivery addresses. Third, charge taxes on your Pledge Manager. If you're wondering if you have to pay taxes on the money you get from Kickstarter, the answer is yes. It is recognized as income, and if you're in the US, even the individual states are going to want their cut. A good Pledge Manager will make charging for taxes based on location very easy, so make sure you set that up. All right, you just learned the 17 steps to launch a successful Kickstarter this year. My goal was to pack as much value as I could for free, so I really hope you learned something from this video. And if you did, I only ask you for 2 very simple things. 1, please hit that like button, and 2, please subscribe to the channel. Both are super easy to do and help me to continue to make awesome free content for you. Lastly, if you're serious about launching a product and you want some help, my team and I would love to chat. Whether you're launching a tech product, a board game, or even a new boutique hotel, we can help you. And you can join a community of over 1,700 other creators who are launching their products too. Just click the link on this video or in the description below, fill out a few questions, and I'll get you connected to the right expert on my team. All right, that does it for this video. I'll see you in the next one.